All right, guys. So welcome back to Boxmining. We're sitting here with Michael too. So in all seriousness, we're sitting in the Genesis block offices right now. Hedge trader Charles is with us, and I felt like this video was going to be great because he's been sharing a lot of insight into what's happening in the cryptocurrency trading and also inside the industry as well. So in this special episode, we're going to ask him a few questions about kind of what's the latest in crypto and how it's affecting the market. Obviously, in the past week, we saw a huge jump. Bitcoin moved 20%.
Yeah.
Do you think that's related to Halving? Let's start with that, Charles.
So April was a boring month for us, I would say. Not a ton of price action, but finally we saw that pre-halving pump that everyone was waiting for. And I think it's just the beginning, right? We still have a week left before the actual event. And we're seeing a kind of correction right now, which sets us up for actually another run just before the actual event. You have to look at the patterns of Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, and BSV was quite recent as well.
So you did a lot of this research about the various happenings that happened before Bitcoin to kind of predict what's going to happen in this time.
Yeah.
So you sound hopeful, though. This is like the first time I've ever heard you sound so hopeful and optimistic.
Yeah. I think there's no scenario where it doesn't pump. I think I've commented before that this is a great market for big players to manipulate. And they love taking momentum. So momentum from the media, momentum from, fundamental events. Halving is naturally a, very important event where, in the inflation of Bitcoin, the limited supply of how it's being produced is going to be cut in half. You can only take it in a positive light. So looking at the price action for these other coins that have already gone through the halving, I'm 100%, I'm not surprised at all to see this pump. I would not be surprised to see another one. And the question is, what happens after the event?
Yes, what happens after?
Does everybody lose interest? Okay, the event's over. There's no more catalysts. Bitcoin is worthless. You can speculate as much as you want.
Right.
But, there's a good macro theme going on right now that also benefits Bitcoin, which is the struggles across all asset classes with coronavirus. You saw like the S&P 500 and other major equity markets take a big hit. Huge margin calls across different asset classes. Initially, it did hit crypto as well. Naturally, if I'm trading a lot of different assets and I'm getting margin calls on certain stock plays, then I do need to offload other assets to make sure that I don't lose my position. So we saw that. So we saw crypto and other asset classes move together initially. And then once these urgent liquidity kind of problems got solved, you actually are seeing Bitcoin kind of decouple from the other asset classes, which is actually exactly what we were hoping to see.
Right. So I guess at the end of the day, Bitcoin didn't go to zero, unlike oil. It didn't go negative either. We didn't have free Bitcoin.
Exactly.
Unlucky for us, but... So we saw that decoupling. We've seen that upward momentum, like almost 20%.
It's like the good old days, 2017.
So what was the research from the other halving? So was that pump and dump? Like did they decrease drastically? What happened over there?
So definitely, a few days ahead of the halving, there was a very strong rally.
So this is for which coin?
I'm speaking more on BCH and BSV.
Okay, so they already had the halving happening for them.
Right.
So
this is already over.
Yeah.
And obviously, what you expect to happen is, okay, so mining Bitcoin and mining BCH uses the same algorithm. It's the same equipment. So if I'm a miner, as soon as it halves, what I'm going to do is switch all my rigs to BTC. I haven't run the math, but I assume halving is it's large impact. I would expect to make more money mining BTC. And that's it looked like that was happening in the beginning.
Right.
And actually there were no blocks for the BCH network for roughly an hour.
Right.
And we thought, oh my God, this is the end of BCH, end of BSV. Surprisingly, hash rate recovered quite quickly. And even just a day or two after the halving, hash rate was actually approaching all-time highs again. So it does kind of show, even for smaller coins like BCH, that mining is profitable. It's just about having the right kind of cost base and finding your edge in terms of compared to other miners, how do I have a higher profit? Exactly.
Right. Okay, so you saw the price also fluctuate, right? So also before the halving, for BCH and BSV, they both also had a small rally, and then also afterwards there was a correction as well.
Yeah, so there was a correction initially, not as bad as we expected, and it definitely recovered very quickly as well. And I think it's hash rate, in this case, hash rate was kind of the leading indicator where people felt confident, okay, the miners are still going to mine this. There's still going to be a network. Obviously, everyone knows with no miners, the blockchain cannot move. There's no purpose for having this network at all, right?
So, yeah, so it's like the apocalypse has been canceled. We're moving forward.
Yeah.
In that sense as well. So now talking about a bit about miners, do you see mining volume potentially decreasing? Obviously, their income is now halved after the halving. Bitcoin coming up soon and already happened for BCH and BSV. Would you see potentially less clients, or do you think the same number of clients, that trade flow is around the same?
Yeah. So from miners' perspectives, I would say at this point, they've already made all the preparations for the halving. If they're going to give up, they're going to give up sooner rather than later. They're not going to wait until the very last moment. And it's actually good news today. BTC hash rate hit like an all-time high, which is very positive in terms of fundamentals for the health of the ecosystem. And in terms of like trading volume going ahead, I'm not really sure how much relationship there is between new coins versus total volume in the market. It really does come from a lot of the volatility. So volatility creates more opportunities to trade, and it's not really about the total supply of coins in the market.
So you saw more action when the markets were more volatile, right?
Yeah.
So that was a bigger driving factor than how many coins
and
miner were produced.
And I think going ahead, news like halving just puts crypto back in the media's eye. And when that happens, there's a variety of flow that could come from people that weren't paying attention to crypto, new funds that are professionally trading this now. And you can see the activity growing on futures exchanges, derivatives. And this is where you see more of the inefficiencies, and that will actually directly impact spot markets as well.
Okay. Yeah. So now being here in Hong Kong, obviously, we see a lot of action in China recently. And switching gears a bit, we saw China really pushing heavily this week and last week for the new currency DCEP, right? So decentralized, I keep saying decentralized now. It's in my mind, okay? It's in my mind. So digital currency, electronic payment. One of the sexiest names for some of the Chinese to come up with. But DCEP is a new coin that the Chinese government themselves, they're pushing a digital currency. Do you see that coming and changing the landscape of what we're happening in crypto, having a digital national currency?
So I mean, the timing is quite interesting. Just when there's a global panic, they decide to launch all this, like a test app coming out from major banks in China, different partners that are already agreed to be testing this.
Yeah, McDonald's, Starbucks, they're all hopping on board.
But at the end of the day, it's good to, have mass media focus on digital currency. I'm not completely sure how this will affect, decentralized public blockchains.
Would you take it? So right now you're doing some currency exchanges. Would you take DCEP? Like later on, if someone just comes over with a digital wallet containing DCEP, would you guys take it?
I think so. I mean, if there's adoption, that means there's liquidity. It's equivalent to taking, I guess, renminbi or some kind of government-backed fiat currency.
It's instead of a cash suitcase full of cash, you would get a phone tap.
I mean, the more important discussion is with a government-backed cryptocurrency, how does it impact existing cryptocurrencies? So right now, China, there's a massive market for things like BTC, ETH, USDT is a big one. Are they going to continue to allow stuff like this when they have something that they consider their own and in a way a competitor, right?
Interesting you mentioned USDT. So you say USDT volume is still quite high in China?
Yeah, so actually, I mean, globally, with, especially the recent rally, I think market cap itself, like in terms of total supply in the market, which means more people are printing, I think it's tripled in the last 6 months.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How about the other one? Didn't Tether create their own digital version of the renminbi as well? Is that picking up, or is that just completely dropped off?
Yeah, so it was quite, it was an interesting move. A foreign company trying to create a token that represents China's like national currency is very risky.
Uh-huh.
But it looks like, there hasn't been a lot of traction. I mean, you got to realize Tether's tried this with a lot of different currencies already. They have the Euro Tether. They should have like maybe the Canadian dollar. Maybe they have a bunch of others. But at the end of the day, it's all about demand, and USDT has been such a front runner in this entire space that that's all that people really need. Yeah.
Interesting. So the trading pair of the USDT is just being so well adopted that there's just no point. There's no the renminbi tether.
Exactly.
Just can't match that. Interesting. Interesting. So maybe the Chinese government can create a digital version. We'll see in the times ahead. Very interesting times ahead as well. Okay, last topic of the day. I think we saw ETH 2.0 come out. So lots of news relating to ETH. I think ETH environment as a whole has been heating up a bit. What's your kind of viewpoint? Are people also trading more ETH now? Is that what volume is seeing right now?
Yeah, so I think ETH definitely outperformed Bitcoin, just looking at the last month. And the only reason you can point to is it either has to be DeFi related or it has to be ETH 2.0 related. It probably isn't DeFi because DeFi has been taking a few hits lately, like ERC 777. There's like people are launching these smart contracts without understanding the flaws. So that's obviously not a good look.
I mean, the D4 space, the D4 event was $25 million, and if they didn't recover that, that would have been a huge hit to any holders.
I mean, the only positive we can take away from that is, blockchain works as it's public, so we know where the coins are going. Authorities can come after you, but it's kind of funny that like centralized authorities have to be the ones that solve decentralized so-called problems, right? But yeah, DeFi, not very positive events as of late. Definitely ETH 2.0 looks like, some hype around it.
Are you excited for ETH 2.0?
So I think it's going to be quite a while before we can actually do something with it. So, phase 1 is supposed to be beacon chain. This is essentially them testing out proof of stake. Does it work or not? Right? And can they make it compatible with the existing chain? So ETH 2.0 is like a brand new product. I think there's more risk than reward at this point. And I think, it's rallying now for this news seems a bit, disproportionate compared to what you're actually going to get.
I think so. I would agree half there, but at the same time, my very first video I made, I think it was one of the earliest one, was about Ethereum proof of stake. It was like, at that time, it was like programmers said, we're going to be 1 year out and then we can get ETH 2. The proof of stake working. But obviously we waited 3-4 years. So I think finally seeing some code is great. I think it's like for anyone who's been waiting for such a long time, finally seeing a little bit of code and a little bit of stuff in action, I think that's exciting.
The problem just is, this is the first step of many, right?
Yes.
Involving sharding, like cross-sharding consensus sounds very complex for me. I'm not an expert, but just logically, it sounds very difficult. At the same time, they're going to have like side chains like Plasma.
Also, they're going to have a new token, ETH 2. Did you know that?
No.
It's like,
they really shouldn't do that though.
It's going to be a one-way move. When you migrate to the beacon chain,
you stake.
You stake into it. You stake into a contract that results in an immediate burn, and then you create ETH 2, and then ETH 2 you can't take out of ETH 2.
Okay, understood.
And then eventually ETH 1 will all migrate to ETH 2.
Right. So just more work for exchanges.
It's a lot more work for exchanges.
They have to integrate all this again.
Yes, exactly. I can definitely see like a whole exchange ecosystem popping up. It's just gonna be a whole mess. So hopefully it works. I'm pretty excited for it just because I've waited so long finally.
No, I mean, it's definitely positive to have progress, and I think we're set up for a really good year. Yeah.
You're excited.
Yeah.
That's great. I love to see you excited, man. You're the most rational person I've seen in this space. And I think that's a great thing about Charles here. It's like he's always rational minded and always strategic planning forward. That's how you stay alive for like decades in this space, right? Hopefully.
I mean, we do what we can. Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's wrapped up today. I hope to see you guys more in the future, and hopefully we can see what's happening after Halving.
All right. Thanks, Michael.
Cheers.